It's time for our Focus Report, and today we take a closer look at a murder that took place in Paris last April that resembles the plot of a terror film. In the early hours of April 4th, Sarah Halimi, a 65-year-old Orthodox Jew, was savagely murdered by one of her neighbours, Kabili Traoré. The 27-year-old Franco-Malian Muslim is accused of having broken into her flat. He then allegedly beat her to death before hurling her body off the balcony into the courtyard below. In the wake of the murder, French authorities treated Halimi's killing as an isolated incident, but Jewish leaders in France say it was a hate crime and that she was assassinated because she was Jewish. Our reporters Christophe Dansette and Jean Barrère have this report.
Paris, July 16th. France is commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Val-d'Ivre roundup of thousands of Jews. French President Emmanuel Macron brings up a more recent criminal case.
In
spite of the murderer's denial, the justice system must clarify the circumstances surrounding Sarah Halimi's death.
Sarah Halimi, a face and a name that most of France is discovering for the first time. But for the last 3 months, the Jewish community has been grieving. Some even took to the streets to express their anger and ask questions. Under what circumstances was this 65-year-old woman killed? Was she killed because she was Jewish? Was it an act of terrorism? The crime occurred in the early hours of April 4th in this building in the Belleville neighborhood of Paris. Around 4 a.m., Kabili Traoré, a resident, goes up to the 3rd floor. He breaks into the apartment of a Malian family that he knows well. He is clearly agitated and quickly breaks into another apartment, that of Sarah Halimi, by way of the balcony. He starts to hit her. Multiple neighbors are awakened by the noise and witness the scene.
I heard the blows of his fists on her skin. He was yelling and was very aggressive. It was shocking.
After 20 minutes, Kabili Traoré throws his victim from the 3rd floor balcony.
Picked her up twice to throw her over the balcony and succeeded on the 2nd try. I think she was already unconscious.
During the unbelievably violent scene, some witnesses overheard the killer's incoherent yelling.
He was screaming to call the police, that his fingerprints were everywhere, so it didn't matter. Things that didn't make any sense.
Others saw a man in a trance, as if possessed.
He was citing verses of the Quran. He said Allahu Akbar and that he'd found the neighborhood's shaitan.
Shaitan, or devil in Arabic. This word haunts Sarah Halimi's brother, who didn't want to address the camera directly.
He targeted my sister because she was Jewish. And he knew it. He was looking for what he called the shaitan. My sister was the ideal shaitan.
According to him, she no longer felt safe in her building. She had even considered moving out, and she had complained multiple times to her family about the neighbors that had lived below her for the last 20 years.
She and her daughter were often insulted. Her neighbor and his family would spit on the ground when she passed by. Her assassin called her a dirty Jew.
The defense, however, denies that the crime was motivated by anti-Semitism. But Kabili Traoré didn't have a history of mental illness. His lawyer says that he had a psychotic episode.
He says that he wasn't motivated by anti-Semitism, but by a force bigger than himself. That he could have killed anyone in that moment. That's what he told me. And he understands why people are getting emotional about this case.
In mid-July, one of the lawyers for the victim's family goes to the media with the story. The 27-year-old man only testified 3 months after the crime and was charged with voluntary manslaughter.
What shocks me is that the aggravating factor of torture wasn't considered, even though the evidence proves it beyond a reasonable doubt. I was expecting him to be charged not with voluntary manslaughter, but with premeditated murder, with anti-Semitism as an aggravating factor. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case. We're doing all that we can to reveal his true intentions.
The lawyers for the victim's family hope that the French president's speech will lead to the crime being recharged as first-degree murder. Until then, both parties are waiting for the results of the psychiatric examination. The procedure will determine whether or not Kobili Traore can be held fully responsible for his actions and whether or not he will go to trial.